This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Money Moves, VSiN, the sports betting network. Sirius XM, channel 158. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We are live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. Big 2 hours on deck. How are you today?
I am great. I feel confident, and I feel ready to roll for our show today.
He's actually very insecure for whatever reason about the color of his shirt. Can you guys tweet at him, at MeJVT, and tell him he looks great?
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry, I'm being booked for a show appearance right now on national radio. So
what show?
The Odds Couple on Fox Radio National.
Oh, very nice.
Friends of mine, dare I say. So,
very nice.
Rob
You
Parker.
could have responded in a commercial break, but that's fine.
Michelle Musburger is the one that tweeted me or texted me, one of our bosses. So
Michelle, come on. You know, we're on the air. Let's go.
I feel like I must
give my guy a
respond.
break. We got to set the table for everything that is to come, though.
Sure,
Massive day. Here's the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
All right, here's everything we got to come today. It is a Tuesday, which means Tuesdays with Adam Burke, VSiN managing editor and MLB analyst. He'll be in studio with us in his usual spot in about 30 minutes. We'll get best bets for today's 15-game MLB card. He also has a new write-up on the website for the Belmont Stakes coming up this weekend, and we'll get his thoughts on the field now that the post-position draw has been held.
Yes, and some of the intricacies on what those post positions mean, if anything. Not, I don't think, as impactful as a race like the Kentucky Derby, but we'll find out. I don't know the answer to those questions. And the last time I got to see Adam, presented a Cy Young candidate for him, and he poo-pooed on it. That man pitches today, and he's still pitching pretty well. Okay. So we'll see if he still feels the same way.
Love it. We will also get into some MVP ladders. JVT is going to get you set with how he sees the NBA Finals MVP. We'll also look at some of the series leaders props with Spurs-Knicks getting underway tomorrow night. We had some odds movement as well for Game 1 and the series. And then I'll give you my breakdown for Conn Smythe. Interesting article came out this morning from ESPN's Greg Wyshynski. And one certain player that we've talked a lot about on this show, there's an interesting quote that we will get to a little bit later on.
Yeah, you have an advantage here because I'm pretty much reflective of the odds to spoil it because we haven't seen any basketball yet. This is strictly for the NBA Finals. Conn Smythe for the entirety of the postseason. So there's a lot more body of work, some more data that you can build your ladder off of.
And we will update these throughout the course of each of the finals as we go as well. But it is Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final coming up tonight in Raleigh. Time to drop the puck. We will preview this game in series at length. TNT's Darren Pang was at ice level for numerous games throughout the postseason. He's going to join us coming up at 12:15 Pacific, 3:15 Eastern. The Canes minus 155 favorites for the series. Same price at home for Game 1 today. According to Evan Abrams, JVT, I did like this one. The last favorite of this size to lose in Game 1 of a Cup Final was the Lightning back in 2004. So it does not happen often. And Game 1, obviously a tone setter for the Stanley Cup Final at large. The team that wins Game 1 wins more than 70% of the time for the set.
How do you bet series game to game?
What do you mean?
Personally, like, how do you handle it from game to game? Do you get right in a Game 1? So for me, I've said this before, but I like to bet overall series and then let the chips fall as they may in terms of the order, the way those games will play out. But I find it hard to look at Game 1 right now and feel like I have any one edge when you're talking about the way that it's being priced or an advantage for either one of these teams.
Okay.
So, like, I have a series bet. I'm just going to sit back and watch and just see how this plays out. But how do you bet these series game to game?
At large, it depends. Like earlier on in the postseason, there were some series where I just felt hyper confident in a side and the way that I felt like it was going to go. And then there are some where it's a very similar sentiment to what you just said, where you just kind of sit back and watch Game 1 and see what goes from there. The Colorado Golden Knights series, I think, is a great data point for that, where I went in and I genuinely had no idea what it was going to look like, especially from an injury standpoint. And so I saw Game 1 as a kind of test case study for what we were going to get the rest of the way. And it still was tough to bet the series after that, right? Like, I thought there was no way that Colorado was going to go down 0-2 at home, and they end up getting swept in that series. But at least just an example for a data point of how I handle things typically. Meanwhile, there's a series like the Flyers in round 1 where I just felt hyper confident that they were going to win the set and then knew that I was going to back them in Game 1 when they were at home. Like, there are certain things that you can plan out Do you have that approach in basketball at times, or is it always kind of a bet the series and then check out game one?
No, I bet the series and then let it fall. I mean, I think, again, it's a sample size thing for me. I would prefer to watch to see, hey, I want all the data points I possibly can to go in my favor. And I think they will over the course of the larger sample size. And still, even a best of 7 is not really enough. But you would think that it's enough that your handicap would play out the way you want it to.
Well, now I'm even thinking back to the Eastern Conference on the NHL side with Carolina. I didn't want to bet game one because of the layoff for the Canes. If anything, it was bet Montreal and go from there. And then Montreal ends up winning that series. But I had the Canes minus 1.5 games. And so, it's, I think, a give and take depending on how you want to look at that. And again, we'll dive into this series in particular coming up in the next segment and a few times throughout the course of the day, with it being game one. A lot of excitement, at least for me as somebody who's a Vegas Golden Knights fan, and for somebody who has watched and enjoyed Carolina Hurricanes hockey for so many years and wondered if they were ever going to get over the hump in the Eastern Conference Final. They finally do it this year. Yeah. Can they actually go ahead and win it? And they're favored to do so. So we'll get there in a moment. We had some chaos yesterday, though, in college baseball and over the weekend that I feel like we need to acknowledge here off the rip. The top 2 seeds and top 2 favorites for the College World Series are done in the opening weekend, JVT. We already knew, and we said it yesterday, UCLA was done over the weekend. But then yesterday, your number 2 overall seed and adjusted College World Series favorite, Georgia Tech, ends up losing in extra innings yesterday to Oklahoma. Dayton Taki hits a series-winning walk-off home run to upset them. And then our boy Jensen Lewis in Morgantown got an unbelievable regional this weekend that ends with West Virginia winning last night in extra innings. Craziness all around.
Yeah, it seems pretty wild watching what this has been doing from afar, and the fact that, look, these are tournaments that are set up largely to help the teams that are at the top.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're here where you have these top 2 that have been eliminated the way that they have been, and now it seems to be pretty chaotic when you look at the odds all the way through Auburn and who's set to potentially win this thing. And I don't know if you would really eliminate anybody the way that this is played out early on. And obviously, as it seems almost every single year, the SEC in very good position to get this done here once again this year. But I was surprised seeing some of the results, especially given the way this format is set up. There was a lot of people I saw, I think it was some UCLA beat writers, complaining about the format of the tournament. It's like, brother,
relax.
This is set up for you, for the top seeds. It's supposed to be for you. If you can't do it, then this is a major screw up on your part.
It is a major screw up, and absolutely brutal for the Bruins in particular, just because they've been the top team, like the best team in college baseball all year long. And for you to be axed the opening weekend is absurd. This is the first time in the super regional era that not a single 2025 College World Series participant has even made this round. So we already knew, obviously, coming into this postseason in general, that LSU, the defending champ, we were going to get a new champion no matter what. But the fact that none of the teams that made Omaha last year are even in the field for the super regionals is pretty crazy. First time ever as well, multiple 4 seeds have advanced to the supers, with both Little Rock and St. John's moving on. Little Rock facing Troy in maybe the most unlikely super regional ever. So the road to Omaha runs through Riddle Pace Field, which I don't think many people had on their bingo card there. North Carolina, your new favorite to win it all in Omaha, plus 370, followed by Texas 4-1, Georgia plus 475, Mississippi State and Auburn plus 550, before we get out to double digits in the aforementioned Mountaineers 10-1. Let's go to the NFL here these last couple minutes, JVT, because after months of waiting, the worst kept secret in the league, I think it's fair to say, has officially become a reality. AJ Brown heading to the Patriots, reuniting with Mike Vrabel. Eagles get a 2027 first round pick and 2028 first round pick, and 2027 fifth to complete the deal.
I mean, some were telling us that this was going to happen a while ago, so we're here. I mean, I think, look, this is a good addition, obviously, for the New England Patriots. I think you can argue they overpaid a little bit. I mean, you're talking about an aging wide receiver for a first-round pick. I don't know if you really love shipping that off, and we'll see what the production's like. And as we have joked around before, and it has been made by many in media, the pain in the ass to production ratio, AJ Brown is delicately on still the right side of that, but if it doesn't really work out, or if it starts to fall off, then you know that you can probably find yourself in a position where you're dealing with more of a headache than anything else. But he's a good receiver. We saw at the beginning of his Philly career that he nearly topped 1,500 yards for a consecutive season. Yep. You have a quarterback like Drake May that's really going to help you out. I would think, a majority of people in assuming that the Patriots are going to take some sort of a step back from a record standpoint because their schedule was very beneficial to them. But I still think Drake May's the real deal. And if he can get the ball to A.J. Brown, that's pretty good. Having said that, when I watched them when they were failing the most, and especially in that Super Bowl, I didn't sit there and say, man, this team needs a wide receiver. I sat there and said, this team needs an offensive line that's going to help them out. You wonder how much that is really going to help them, the addition of Brown, as opposed to what was one of their biggest weaknesses a season ago. Sure,
but I will say the addition of Brown, given the subtraction of Stephon Diggs, right, it's good. You have a guy that is of his caliber, also a great contested catch guy. Howie Roseman, when asked about making the move now, said, quote, for us to take a 2026 pick, and that's a late first-round pick, obviously have to deal with the cap consequences that come with making a trade prior to June 1. It made more sense for us to look at futures picks. We've always been of the mindset, a pick is a pick, a first-round pick is a first-round pick. Doesn't matter. Teams are still going to be playing football in 2028 with people just wondering why they pushed the compensation, or allowed, that is, the other side of this, to push the compensation to 2028. You
just never know you just never know what's going to happen, too.
Sure.
I mean, there's look at my team, for example. I know this is the NBA, but when the day the trade for Paul George happened, if I was going to tell you that, hey, man, like that last pick, like these picks might be pretty valuable because the Clippers actually aren't going to be that good, especially at the tail end of this, it would have been like, oh, that's crazy. They're getting Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Isn't this going to work? You just never know what's going to happen in 2 years.
Patriots will open the season in a rematch of the Super Bowl we just saw against the Seattle Seahawks on that first Thursday night, 99 days away from kickoff in week 1. Okay, we are just getting started here on Money Moves. Got to step aside for a first time out of the day. When we return, we are going to deep dive into game 1 of tonight's Stanley Cup Final between the Carolina Hurricanes and Vegas Golden Knights, how I'm playing it, why I think there's huge value on this series-long prop, and I already know the answer to this. I was initially going to ask if I could get you on board for one or two things, but I already got you on board for one.
Yeah, because you were on Pod of the Futures yesterday, which is out now, by the way.
That's true. But I didn't know that you were going to bet it.
I said I was.
I knew Mitch was going to bet it because he was asking me where I got it, so there we go. Okay, we got to step aside. We will be right back, though. More Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, after this.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Championship season's here, and VSiN Pro can help you bet it smarter. For a limited time, lock in the early bird pricing on our football season special. Just $175, folks. Sooner you sign up, the more value you get. Full access to everything we do across every sport through the Super Bowl. It means the NBA Final, Stanley Cup Final, Belmont Stakes, Major League Baseball, and more. How about that 2026-2027 NFL betting guide coming June 22nd? Go to VSiN.com/subscribe and check it out. That's VSIN.com/subscribe.
He is Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony, and you, our audience, are already in your bag this morning, which we love to see, because ask and you shall receive. I said, hey, tweet at us. What do you think about JVT's shirt? And we are already getting a response. Jason H11, always a loyal listener and viewer, says Matt Brown dresses better. So you got that to kick it off
That's
here.
True.
Dave Neal 24 gives you a Barney gif, which that was the comp I gave. I just said it's the color of Barney.
Correct.
But James Coleman, I think, with the ultimate win here, showing you Michael Scott from The Office.
That's right. A very tight shirt.
It's European cut. Yeah. Even though that was a women's shirt in that episode, if I recall.
Well, it was his suit in general. It was, yes. And then they checked the label, and the label, the designer was Mysterious, but MISS. Yes, it's a very actually good cut. It's one of my favorite jokes of the entire series. So it's very good. Mine's at least giving some room. Like, I'm not as tight as Michael Scott in the picture.
I actually think it's a nice shirt. It is a sharp look.
Thank you, appreciate it.
But the color, it did You asked, so I just told you what it reminded me of a little bit. My childhood hero. Let's get into a little hockey because we have game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final coming up tonight. Out there in Raleigh, Carolina minus 155, favorite in the series, as well as on the money line at most places that you look at. Not seeing a ton of movement. I believe it was BetMGM, though, that I saw minus 145, so just a 10-cent difference there, depending on the book that you look. Total here, 5.5, and you're still getting a pretty decent price on the under. Even money, minus 102 around town for a game and a series. At least most people on the surface have discussed being lower scoring because of the defensive structure of both of these teams. That is something, though, I know you specifically when we were recording Part of the Futures yesterday did push back on.
Well, I think because you never. I think part of the danger of what we were talking about on the podcast, which was everybody having the same thought, is you don't even want to have the conversation about the other side of it. So it's not even that I truly believe that this might happen. It's just I think you can paint the picture of this being a higher scoring series only because these are the top 2 teams. If you go to Money Puck, the top 2 teams in terms of expected goals throughout the postseason. So in other words, they are generating the most valuable shots of any of these teams in the postseason. And they're doing it by a very wide margin. And so when you have 2 teams going at it that are so good at generating those shots, I will just say, for this example, let's say you're right and that Freddie A all of a sudden is going to regress to some sort of mean that he was in the regular season. You get a team on the other side that's generating some really good looks. Vegas themselves, we can talk about how well Carter Hart has played to this point, but the point I brought up to you guys, if you look at expected goal differential so far in the postseason, Vegas is awful. They're barely getting by because they themselves give up a lot of high-quality looks. It's just that Carter Hart, to the point of him being great, has been very good. Well, is he going to be good in all of the games? What if it's a 7-game series? Let's say even Vegas still wins it, but 3 of those games, Carter Hart could put up some stinkers or at least get got, as we saw in the Utah series as well. So I just think that you can at least paint the picture, I think, if you look at the way these teams have played, of getting to a point where it might even be stupid hockey, as we talked about, right? What if it's 2 games where it's like 18 to 16 shots on goal for both of them, but it's 4-3 because they're just so good at generating high-quality looks? And I think that's the path you go down if this is not the series that a lot of people expect it to be.
That said, I don't know if there's a game in the history of history that the Carolina Hurricanes have only had 18 shots on goal, right? Like the way that they are such a shot volume team, that style of game just isn't what you get from them. But I understand the overarching theme of what you're saying here, which actually leads me to a prop I did bet tonight. And full disclosure, I am on the under 5.5 just in general. That is one of my best bets when we get to that at the end of the show.
For the game, right?
For the game. Okay. Over for the series, but it's minus 185. And so that's a tough proposition to have to pay nearly $200 to win your 100 back. However, for the prop, I took over 27.5 saves for Carter Hart tonight because of what we're talking about with the shot volume that Carolina has day in and day out. And we know, given John Tortorella's past with Carter and their relationship, that Torts isn't going to pull Carter Hart even if he's got a bad start. He has repeatedly said that Hart is a guy that likes to work through his issues in a game. And we saw even against the Utah Mammoth earlier in the playoffs, he gave up 4 goals on 12 shots and did not leave that game and started the next game. He believes in Carter Hart, wants to give him the opportunity to work through it. And I think given what he's done in the postseason, even if Carolina was capitalizing on some of those shots, that he would leave Carter in throughout the course of the game. So given the volume and given the way that Torts has this approach with Carter Hart, I think 27.5 is potentially a gift in terms of how many shots he could be facing.
Are you going to go under saves for Freddie Anderson?
That would be the natural inclination. I stayed away from it though because I think
you should
Vegas,
stick to your guns, man. Because if you're right, again, Vegas is so good at generating all these looks and driving up their expected goal number that if he's going to turn into a pumpkin, this would be the series in which it happens.
And I would say too, game 1s are weird, which kind of goes back to what we were just talking about.
That.
They absolutely did in getting torched game 1 after the long layoff against Montreal, but we just talked about it in the last segment, right? You might have an angle or an inclination in how the series is going to go, but game 1, you kind of want to get a feel out for what that looks like. John Tortorella talked about the layoff that his team has had coming into this, fresh off the sweep against the Colorado Avalanche. It has been 6 days of nothing. The first 2 days after they swept Colorado, they had full days off. And the verbiage he used over the weekend to describe what this has been like, take a listen.
Okay, what's the biggest thing that you worry about in a layoff that you have to be sharp?
Just that, the layoff.
Yeah.
Just that. It's a lot of days, and I'll tell you right now, it worries the crap out of me that I shouldn't say, I think we have a good group that's going to handle it the right way. We have a plan to try to be as prepared as we can. I trust the group, but as a coach, I'm thinking last night after 2 days off, which they deserved, which was perfect for us. I worry about just you lose your edge for just a little bit. That's a big disadvantage, and that's the key for us.
So this is a situation where Carolina's actually in a little bit more rhythm coming off of the series with Montreal than Vegas is.
Yeah, I mean, again, like we've talked about this all the time, right? It's rest or rust depending on what happens in the game. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen. Now, like the Carolina game 1 against Montreal, that was a historic number of, a very unique amount of rest that I don't think you're really ever probably going to see again, the way the schedule broke down. So I would trust that they're probably all in pretty good form in terms of being ready to go. By the way, I may or may not have ran into the person who asked that question in that video clip on a Thursday night last week.
Darren Millard.
He did, yes. Saw him in person, talked to him for a little bit, and I may or may not have promised him a guest spot. So,
hey, let's go. He likes coming on with us. He's told me that before.
He did. He spoke highly of our show.
Also, a lot of conversation around this series has been the path and both teams with that kind of being challenged a little bit.
Well, okay, is the conversation from like angry hockey people that are just like on Twitter, like, yeah, these paths so easy, or is there something to it?
What it seems like to me is that depending on what side you're on, you're very critical of the other side's path. Right. I think both of them have worked out very nicely for them to get to this point.
I mean, I would argue let's Carolina specifically, you can say what you want about their path. They dominated that path. It's not like they went through and scuffled and was like, no, they absolutely waxed everybody in front of them. And for Vegas, you could talk about the path up until Colorado. Everybody and their mother thought that Colorado was, pun intended, an avalanche. It was going to just come down and pummel Vegas in that series and potentially win in relative ease.
But then after the fact, it's, okay, but Cale Makar is so important to what they do. And then Nathan McKinnon gets injured.
In the lumberyard. Like, no, stop. Like,
even throughout the course of the series, everyone was like, Colorado's not getting swept. They're going to win.
Right.
Yet they go up, 3-0 in that third game, and then still were able to do nothing after that.
I would always argue, even if you want to make the case that all of those injuries, absences, all of that does impact the series, it's not like Vegas got pushed to 7. They beat their ass. There was no question about who was the better team in that series.
Yeah, this is interesting, though. And I was saying to Gil Alexander when we were having our crossover between shows earlier this morning, because he asked me what my pick was in the series. And I ultimately have kind of put my foot down on Vegas in 6. That's the pick that I've come out here with, despite Carolina being the favorite. And exactly what you said, the way that they have steamrolled through the playoff to this point. I do think that they are such a complete team and they're great. And this is going to be a really difficult series on both sides. But as I was going through each little detail of the way that these teams are built, I kept giving like slight edge to Vegas. The Carolina Hurricanes have had the most productive line in the playoffs in their second line, right? That Hall, Stankov, and Blake line. Yet the Vegas second line with Mitch Marner and Brett Howden has the player with the most points in the postseason and the most goals in the postseason. Their top line has operated at a much better clip than the non-existent top line for Carolina to this point. Both have depth in their forward lines. The Vegas Golden Knights get the edge in special teams for me. They have doubled up Carolina on the power play to this point. The PKs, I think, are a bit of a wash. The only area that you have a clear, distinct advantage is the Carolina defensive core, which I don't think Vegas exactly like that their D is a bunch of slouches either. So I came up with Vegas.
You smelling that?
Is that me smelling like a homer?
It smells like a show bet to me.
Let's do it.
All right, we got to talk about it.
Watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Folks, Circa's 2026 football contests are open, and you don't have to live in Vegas to play. After your required in-person registration, Winner's Circle Proxy handles your weekly submissions so you can make your picks from anywhere in the country. Winner's Circle Proxy is VSiN's preferred proxy service. One trip to Vegas, play all season long from anywhere. Schedule your appointment now at winnerscircleproxy.com. VSiN.com.
Speaking of the NFL, the Rams are at it again as we welcome you back here to Money Moves. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you as they make the move yesterday, the blockbuster trade to bring in Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns. And with that, they shipped Jared Verse, a 2027 first-round pick, 2028 second, a 2029 third. And we have the one and only Adam Burke in studio with us, who is an Ohio native, who is a Browns fan. Big picture, I imagine you're happy with the potential for the future. Current situation, though, how are the vibes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you lose probably the best player of all time at his position, it's definitely going to, rattle the fan base, certainly. But I mean, Myles Garrett had already demanded a trade once before, hadn't done so yet this year, but also hadn't met with the new head coach, Todd Monken, yet. So the writing was pretty much on the wall, especially when they restructured, his bonuses back in March to make it easier to trade him on June 1st. And that's precisely what they did. Yeah, I mean, I understand that Jared Verse from a stats standpoint, right? I mean, it doesn't look like Myles Garrett, right? Myles Garrett had 23 sacks last year, single season record, 33 tackles for loss, like just an elite level player. But I think Jared Verse is pretty good too. And there's not a whole lot of people talking about that. It's just kind of the loss of Myles Garrett. But I think the people that, have a good idea of how to evaluate players are looking at Jared Verse and saying, look, this is a guy who's probably top 15, top 20 at his position. He's in his rookie contract, still has 2 more years of that, plus a 5th-year option. This is a really good move for the Browns, given where they currently stand. Plus, I know people are saying, well, this first-round pick is going to be 30th or 32nd or whatever it is. Look, you can still get a damn good player at the end of the first round, or if you have to, package your 2 first-round picks to move up and get the quarterback that you want. So I think it's a smart move for the Browns, gives them a little bit more cap flexibility. It is a bummer that, they're still seeing the fallout from the Deshaun Watson trade this far, removed from it. But it was a move I think had to be made, to be honest with you. And I think the defense is going to be just fine with Jared Verse out there.
I mean, I would agree on all points. I think a lot of people keep making the joke about Jared Verse got to go to Cleveland. I mean, nobody will remember. Call my shot now, June 2nd, 2026. They're going to be pretty solid or good in 2027.
Yep.
And to your point, worst record in the NFL this year, that should be Cleveland's number one goal now.
Correct.
You've got to be, I'm sorry, but you have to tank this out. You've got to give Shedeur Sanders or the worst of the quarterbacks as much runway as they want. You go ahead, you lose games. You want to get to the top of the draft or as close as possible so the package is easier so we can move up and we can go get one of these quarterbacks. And obviously the name that they want, the Haslams have the connection to Arch Manning, should he pan out in his year over there at Texas. But I think this is set up great for Cleveland.
I think so too. I mean, the only thing I think is a problem for Cleveland is that outside, and this is the same thing I've been talking about for years with this team, outside of the most important position on the field, this is a pretty good roster.
Yes.
I mean, their skill group is fantastic. We'll see what Quinshon Judkins looks like coming back off the ACL, but I mean, they added 2 wide receivers with high picks in the draft, right? They still have Harold Fannin Jr., who had one of the best tight end seasons we've ever seen out of a rookie, if not the best. The offensive line still has some issues, but they've kind of rebuilt that on the fly a little bit here, including Spencer Fano, who they took in the first round. There's a path in which even if the quarterbacks are bad, and they're probably going to be, whether it's Watson, Shedeur, or if Dylan Gabriel somehow starts for this team, the rest of the roster could get you to 6-11, right? Yep. Maybe even 7-10, if things all fall into place. So at that point, you're not picking first. You're probably not even picking in the top 5. So adding that late first does give them an opportunity. If there's a team that doesn't need a quarterback, in the top 3, it allows them the chance to move up. And I think that's what they're really thinking about here, with this deal.
To put some context to it, 11-1 over at DraftKings have the worst record if you believe that they're going to go full tank or try to make that happen. And actually slightly worse odds to be the first, or excuse me, have the fewest wins than the Raiders, who are plus 980. And the reason why I bring that up is not only the price difference, the Raiders are going to be very determined to win as many games as possible. The Browns are not. And so I just find that dynamic very interesting.
VSiN managing editor Adam Burke joining us in studio here has an article breaking down the Myles Garrett trade up at VSiN.com right now. With that, from an odds perspective on the Rams side of things, they now become the standalone favorite for the Super Bowl. They are the short shot in the NFC West, albeit not that significantly, though, against the Seattle Seahawks for the division as well. But did anything stand out to you about what the Rams are doing and the way they continue to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things in play here, right? And when you look at the fallout immediately after the deal, kind of leaked out there on social media, it wasn't fully confirmed, but, did leak out there on social media. You talk about the prediction markets, talk about Kalshi. I mean, the Rams were about 10% higher chance than anybody else to win the Super Bowl in the immediate fallout after the trade. So obviously a lot of markets are very reactionary, as we know, and you'll have instances like that. Things will kind of settle back in a little bit. They went from about 19 cents to about 16 cents in that futures market within the span of a couple of hours after that deal. But I mean, you have a 38-year-old quarterback in Matthew Stafford, right? You have a very, very strong win now window. And also, you know, you still have good young players in Fisk and Turner on that defensive line that you're kind of trading for a position of strength. Letting a guy like Verse go. Yes, you'd love for him to develop into that role and, you know, see what his ceiling, see what his peak could be. But you don't pass on a player like Myles Garrett when that opportunity arises. So the other thing here is that when you look at this division, I mean, obviously the Cardinals are going to be really bad and probably the team who does, you know, ultimately win that fewest wins market, especially playing 6 games within this division. But, you know, if you're the Rams, I mean, it's truly an arms race, right? I mean, the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. The 49ers are good year in and year out. The Rams, maybe they were missing a game-breaking type of piece like a Myles Garrett. I don't know. But, you know, they're going to win the field position battle a lot now. You know, they're going to get those negative plays on defense that help Stafford and the offense out. Just a phenomenal acquisition for them. And again, I think they traded from a position of strength.
Yeah, but it's a good thing they can use that 2026 first-round pick, number 13 overall, to help them win this year as well, right?
Ridiculous.
Really good win now move and getting Ty Simpson.
Well, that's the question, right? I mean, you know, obviously there was a lot of talk about once they were willing to include Jared Verse in a deal for Myles Garrett that it was going to come together. Is that something that they were considering doing in April? Or is this something that kind of came together a little bit later here to the point where if they knew that Garrett was attainable, do they do something different with that Ty Simpson pick? But also, I mean, this is a Rams team that virtually never has a first-round pick. So, hey, if they think Ty Simpson's the guy, right, to replace Stafford, he's got plenty of time to learn behind him.
And laugh all you want, they still do have the reigning MVP and now the reigning defensive player of the year on their team. So,
well, of course. You could also have, like,
I get what you're saying.
Pretty good first-round player or prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Also, while we're on the NFL real quickly, we officially got the email, I believe yesterday, that you are taking submissions now for the NFL betting guide. I know it's like herding cats for you for the next month, trying to get this thing done. But talk about that labor of love and what people can expect when it comes out this summer.
Yeah, it is. And hopefully, you know, all of our hosts, all of our talent have put reminders in their Google calendars or whatever Apple uses. Sorry, I'm an Android guy. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's good to get this guide out early, June 22nd, Monday, June 22nd specifically. I know you guys talked about that with one of the reads in the previous segment. It's good to have it out early. You know, we'd like to try to beat as many of the publications out there to market as we possibly can, because these lines do move a lot. You know, we want our people to try to get the best numbers possible for either the things that they really like after consuming the guide info, or kind of following along with what some of our experts like. So, several different feature articles coming in that, but of course, best bets from the hosts, all their division picks and all of that as well. But, always looking forward to having this guide out. I mean, it's just 20 days away now. And I think the last couple of days and, the whole Max Crosby, Ravens, Trey Hendrickson thing just serve as a reminder that the NFL is a year-round sport. And so we're always kind of thinking about it, but getting, pen to paper, fingers to keyboard, however you want to say it, and getting that guide out on June 22nd, something that we're really looking forward to, and, a big reason to subscribe over at VSiN.com.
Why'd you look at me when you were talking about calendars and reminders?
I looked at both of you. Stormy is... What kind of procrastinator were you in college? Were you like, I have this 12-page paper due and I'm going to start it the night before? Or you just do that now with the betting guides?
No. I think what has always benefited me, and it works well for me as a sideline reporter, is I have really strong, short-term, can get stuff done, short-term memory, that kind of thing. And so if I put the deadline in, and it's usually, the 48 hours before that I knock out as much as I can.
One time in college, I had a paper that was due. It was like an 8-page paper, some history class or something like that. And we all had those laptops that needed to stay plugged in or else they died very quickly. So I wrote the whole thing on there, and then it got unplugged and died. And I never saved it. So I had to go to the library the second it opened all day and just work on it again. Yeah, I had
to do a project in college. I think it was my freshman year. We had to take Ohio history, in the University of Akron, and we had this big project due. And what I wound up doing in my, brilliance was a historical note about every county in the state of Ohio.
Okay.
There are 88 counties in the state of Ohio, and I started it the morning the day before it was due.
Do you remember any of them?
I got like a 70 something on it. So I got what I deserved, basically.
Okay, we got to step aside. More with Adam when we return to Money Moves. All 30 teams in MLB in action today. We'll talk through his best bets. Plus, Belmont Stakes coming up this weekend. Post-draw yesterday. We will go through everything in a bit. Stay with us right here. You won't want to miss it.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Post positions came out yesterday for the Test of Champions, a.k.a. the Belmont Stakes, coming up this weekend. No Triple Crown, unfortunately, but Golden Tempo, this year's Kentucky Derby winner, will be in the field. As we welcome you back here to Money Moves, Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel, VSiN managing editor Adam Burke hanging out with us for one more segment. You do have a write-up at VSiN.com right now previewing the Belmont coming up on Saturday. What were some of your biggest takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, like 9 horses in the field, right? So, less than half of the size, or, what am I looking for here? It's half the size of the Kentucky Derby, basically, where there's 20 horses in that. So there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of, jockeying for position, pardon the pun. There's a lot of horses kind of bumping together and all of that. So it's a very, very difficult race to run. This is a much more traditional race for what you would see in most of the stakes races. So, and of course, smaller field than what we saw for the Preakness as well. But a lot of horses coming back: Chief Wallaby, Renegade, Commandment, Golden Tempo. A lot of people like Emerging Market in this field as well. I guess this is a very, very wide open race here. Going a mile and a quarter at Saratoga. They'll be back at Belmont Park next year when the renovations are done. But I mean, I don't think that there's necessarily a bad post-draw in a race such as this. Sure. But this is a race that they're not expecting a lot of early pace in this one, which I think is going to be really interesting for a horse like Golden Tempo, who, had one of the most incredible closing runs we've ever seen, winning at 23-1 there at Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May. I don't think this race sets up nearly as well for that horse. So I think we're not going to see a Kentucky Derby Belmont double here. I don't think we're going to see that. I think it will be somebody other than Golden Tempo. We'll see if it's Commandment, Emerging Market. A lot of people who like Chief Wallaby going into the Kentucky Derby will probably come back on him again here in this race. So that was the biggest thing that I noticed for me. And we're going to have a lot of coverage from our VSiN team, Ed Sehan, Dave Tooley, Mike Samich, but also our friends over at DRF, Daily Racing Forum, throughout the week here, because it's not just the Belmont. There are a lot of stakes races on both Friday and Saturday's cards there at Saratoga, Sunday as well. So a great week of racing across the country, but especially there at Saratoga, and we'll have all that coverage at VSiN.com.
For the top race, is there any one horse that you would really like to use in all the different ways you're going to play it? Is there one at the top you really like?
I
know you mentioned it was wide open, so it's probably a harder question to use.
It is very, very wide open, especially because, this was mostly just kind of looking at the draw, and then I'll start digging into the past performances and all that. But one thing I will mention, not sure how hip our VSiN audience is necessarily, but number one, Vitruvian Man, is co-owned by Lil Wayne and
Lil Yachty.
So
you went hard. You went little.
When you can't hit the
So it's not little, it's Lil?
Yeah. Yep.
Like Phil and Lil from Rugrats?
Sure. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Good reference.
Yeah, there we go. Why not?
If you're really endearing yourselves to our audience, Rugrats and rapper mentions are going to get you.
So I think it's interesting here, too. I just want to mention this real quick. Last year in the Triple Crown races, there was a horse named Sandman who was co-owned by Griffin Johnson, who I have no idea who that is, but apparently he's some really big influencer out there on Instagram and TikTok and all of that. Oftentimes when you get these celebrities or these social media stars or whatever who are part owners of these horses, money's going to come in on them just because people want to say that they wagered on them. So I think that's going to create some value maybe for somebody else in the field, that this is the long shot. But because of those connections to, rappers who are pretty popular, at least as far as I know, we'll probably see some money come in on them, and that's probably going to depress the price to the point where it shouldn't be. So maybe that creates some value on some of the other horses in the field.
Okay, let's get to Major League Baseball here the last little bit. JVT, do you want to start? Because I know there was a specific question you had for Adam.
Yeah, I did. I wrote a note for myself. Don't worry. Okay. Because I keep forgetting to tell Stormy something in the break that has to do with our job.
You also wrote rundown with 3 exclamation points.
Yeah, that's okay. Now you're going to bring this out on the air. I got locked out of the rundown.
I
so
thought he was reminding himself
Yes.
to bet on Vitruvian Man at 30 to 1.
All right, let's
I
go.
didn't realize that's what you're writing.
Yeah,
now.
no. It just hit me again, so I had to remember. Davis Martin starting today against the Twins. By the way, you want an example of how frustrating, just sports betting in general is. I was so right yesterday, Adam. I came on here and gave a quick soliloquy on how Joe Ryan's got some weird contact numbers and wasn't giving up home runs. And you're like, dude, this can't last. There's no way. White Sox should be alive here. 2 of the 3 things happened. The White Sox still lost the game. So that was a lot of fun yesterday going against Joe Ryan, being absolutely right and still getting it wrong. But the White Sox, again, with another one here. Davis Martin, as I mentioned to you, was one of those long shot AL Cy Young candidates like 2 weeks ago. He's keeping it up through 67 2/3. What have you seen from him here so far? Is there some legitimacy? Because you pretty quickly were like, nah, I'm out. Was there something you saw in him that you didn't think it was sustainable?
By the way, I was on the under in that White Sox Twins game yesterday, looking at Joe Ryan and the fact that he's done so well with home run suppression. But as far as Davis Martin goes, I mean, look, the chase rate is up, the swinging strike rate is up. It's well above the league average for starting pitchers. Throws a lot of first pitch strikes too. The quality of the stuff is just. That's something that I worry about. So there's a couple of different pitching models out there that I like to refer to: Stuff Plus and Pitching Plus.
Yeah, look, can you show me?
Absolutely. And some of the smartest guys that are out there, I think, in the baseball stats community are the ones who came up with Stuff Plus and Pitching Plus. And Stuff Plus is essentially like the physical characteristics of a pitch: spin rate, velocity, in terms of, just locating effectively, all these kinds of things. Pitching Plus just kind of encompasses all of it, along with looking at things like platoon splits, right? Are you able to get guys out? Are you able to get lefties out when you're a righty? Stuff like that. Well, Davis Martin this season, 91 Stuff Plus, which would mean it's about 9% below league average. Okay. 91 Pitching Plus, 9% below league average. Now, that's not to say he can't have success. Bryce Elder is a guy who's had a lot of success this season, and his Stuff Plus and Pitching Plus numbers are also bad. But Martin's getting swings and misses, right? So maybe it's just something different about the shape of his pitches, the sequencing, whatever the case may be. The numbers do, support themselves, right? 2 ERA, 2.31 FIP, very, very good. The problem, I think, going forward now is without Murakami in the lineup, are the White Sox going to continue to get the same run support for their starting pitchers that they had been? And as the season goes along and some of these relievers who aren't used to pitching in high leverage start to tire a little bit, do we see inherited runners score off of Martin? Do we see him maybe lose some games where he's in line for the win? Stuff like that, to where I don't think win-loss record matters that much, but when you're on a team that's probably not going to make the playoffs, it's going to come into that equation for the Cy Young voting. But again, great season that he's having here so far.
Okay, let's get to some of your best bets for today. The Braves on Saturday became the first team to reach the 40 win mark. Best record in baseball, second best run differential, plus 109 right now. You mentioned Bryce Elder. He is going for Atlanta today, taking on Kevin Gausman and the Blue Jays. What do you like?
Yeah, so I kind of intentionally set this up here a little bit. So there are 16 pitchers in Major League Baseball right now that have thrown at least 70 innings. From a Stuff Plus standpoint, Bryce Elder ranks 16th out of 16. His Pitching Plus mark of 93, also the worst. So this is a guy in line for a lot of negative regression, it would seem. And, we saw that in his last start, didn't pitch very well. Now he takes on a Toronto offense that's kind of getting it going a little bit. They're starting to get rewarded for all the contact that they make because they don't strike out. They're very aggressive, swinging early in counts. Elder's not a guy who gets a ton of chase historically throughout the course of his career. So I think this is a pretty good spot here for this Toronto offense. And also Kevin Gausman's just really, really good. He's a tough guy to hit against. The Braves offense has been good, but Toronto's offense has been slightly better against right-handed pitching here of late. So I felt like Toronto in this underdog role was worth a look here today. This was, I grabbed it at like plus 104 or something very early this morning. Then we saw a little bit of line movement come in on Toronto. So minus price out there, but still a slight dog, and I think the Blue Jays are worth it.
What about Rangers Cardinals? Because Eovaldi continues to kind of have these weird ebbs and flows. He was pitching really well, then I think gave up 5 last time out. And they're getting the Cardinals here today. Yeah, and that was a start where I like the Rangers. I think I played them first 5 or played Eovaldi in some facet where he was facing a lot of right-handed batters with the Astros. Eovaldi's been historically very, very strong against same-side hitters. For whatever reason in that game, he wasn't, though. And Houston's offense just continues to chug along, which has been pretty impressive. But as far as Texas goes, I think they're kind of figuring this thing out a little bit. Bullpen's been pretty solid. Last year, they had the best bullpen in baseball by ERA. Bullpen's been pretty good here of late. They've won 4 in a row. They swept the Royals. They went on the road, had a happy flight to St. Louis, won that game 2-1. St. Louis played a lot of games against division rivals here of late. In fact, their game against the Rangers last night
was their first non-division game since May 17th. So I think this Cardinals team, which is pretty young, may just be worn down a little bit. Not a huge believer in Dustin May keeping this going, a guy with a long-standing injury history. And also, I don't know that I've seen a ton of injury indicators, but his velocity down a little bit in his last 2 starts relative to his previous, several outings, his previous 9-10 starts. Kind of wonder if something's going on there. I'm going to take the Rangers here in this coin flip type of game.
And we'll leave this last one as a tease because if you do go to VSiN.com right now, Adam has his daily article out with all of the best bets. There is a prop he really likes later on this afternoon as well. Real quickly before we let you go, Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA finals going on this weekend. What do we have going on at the website?
There's a lot. There's always a lot, but, again, as I mentioned, Belmont Stakes here this week, so we're going to have all the contributions from our friends over at DRF, plus our VSiN team of Ed Sehan, Dave Tooley, and Mike Somich. NBA Finals coverage from Zachary Cohen, NHL Finals coverage from Jonathan Davis. We've got golf, NASCAR, all that stuff going on. I know people feel like it's a slow time of year. It's not over at VSiN.com.
VSiN.com/subscribe is how you can come join us on a full-time basis. He's Adam Burke. Stick around. We are resetting for hour 2 of the program when we come back here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Game 1 of the NBA Finals getting underway tomorrow. We're previewing it all next.